In college football, one of the most important steps of building a strong program is getting the right coach. Hiring the right coach can help build your program and turn it into a consistent winner and bring a whole new culture that will set the precedent for your team for years, and it will be the blueprint for new coaches that take over your team in other programs. For example of a good hire that recently happened, in November 2023, Indiana hired James Madison head coach Curt Cignetti. In his first season with the Hoosiers, the team went 11-2 and made the college football playoffs. They did lose to Notre Dame in the first round, but in his first year at Indiana, Cignetti helped the Hoosiers have their first ever double-digit win season in program history. We are all going to see if Cignetti and the Hoosiers can be consistent winners in these upcoming seasons, but this was an amazing first season for Cignetti, and hopefully this will be the start of something special in Bloomington, Indiana. While a good coaching hire can help build up your team and lead into the future, a bad coaching hire can hinder your team and possibly might set your program back in the short or long run. For an example of a bad hire, Purdue hired Illinois defensive coordinator Brian Walters to be their new head coach. He went 4-8 in his first season at Purdue, and then in his second season, he went 1-11 and also went winless in the Big Ten, with their only win being against Indiana State. In the final game of the 2024 season, the Boilermakers lost 66-0 against their in-state rivals, the Indiana Hoosiers, and after the embarrassing blowout loss to their rival, Ryan Walters was fired the next day, marking the end of a short 2-season tenure that many Purdue fans would like to forget. Getting the head coach right goes a long way of how the future of your program will shape out. But sometimes your head coach won't even last before the season even starts. In the very rare times, there will be a moment where the coach you hired won't even make it to the first game of the year. And in this video, I want to talk about the 2 times where this happened. Today, we will be discussing the very short tenures of George O'Leary at Notre Dame and Alabama's Mike Price.
That's the way to start to make a pretty world for you and for me. And for the sun we'll find a lemon bright balloon who can hold the string.
The year is 2001 and the Fighting Irish have finished the season with a 5-6 record. Due to this losing record, the Fighting Irish decided to fire head coach Bob Davie. Bob Davie was the defensive coordinator for the Fighting Irish from 1994 through 1996 and was promoted to head coach after the retirement of legendary head coach Lou Holtz. The promotion of Bob Davie didn't sit well with some in the Fighting Irish faithful, due to him referring to the traditions of Texas A&M rather than the traditions at Notre Dame. It also didn't help during his time at Notre Dame. The Fighting Irish were dealing with 2 separate scandals in 1996 and 1999. The first scandal had to do with the firing of longtime offensive line coach Joe Moore, who was fired by Bob Davie for being, in his mind, too old. On the same day of his promotion to head coach, Davie went to the home of the at the time 64-year-old Moore to deliver the news. Quote, "At your age, I can't count on you for 5 more years, Davie said. Davie would lie to the team's offensive linemen that their position coach was retiring, and when word got back to Moore, he was not very happy. This would lead to a lawsuit in which Moore successfully sued the university for age discrimination and won a small settlement. And in 1999, Notre Dame were put on sanctions due to the actions of booster Kimberly Dunbar, who stole over $1.2 million and spent it on getting gifts for Notre Dame players during Lou Holtz's time as head coach. Due to these scandals and inconsistent results on the field, Bob Davie was dismissed after the 0-1 season. So now the Fighting Irish were in the market for a new head coach, a head coaching search that had rumored names like John Gruden and Steve Mariucci, but the Fighting Irish decided to hire Georgia Tech head coach George O'Leary. George O'Leary got his start in coaching back in New York, where he spent time as a high school assistant coach and a head coach for 2 separate high schools, where he would have an 82% winning percentage. In his first college coaching job, he was the defensive line, then assistant coach, then defensive coordinator at Syracuse. And after 6 seasons at Syracuse, O'Leary would leave and become the defensive coordinator / D-line coach for Bobby Ross at Georgia Tech. During his his first stint at Georgia Tech, the Yellow Jackets would go 11-0-1 and win the national championship in 1990. After the 1991 season, O'Leary would get his first NFL job as the D-line coach for the San Diego Chargers, as he would follow Bobby Ross to San Diego. O'Leary would be back at Georgia Tech in 1994 and then became the interim coach for the Yellow Jackets after Bill Lewis was fired. He was promoted to head coach in 1995 and would help the Yellow Jackets make 5 straight bowl games after 2 subpar years. Thanks to this constant success at Georgia Tech, he was hired by the Fighting Irish in 2001. Not only was this an exciting hire for Fighting Irish fans hoping O'Leary could be a winner at Notre Dame, just like he was at Georgia Tech, this was also exciting for some in New Hampshire, but also he was a 3-time Letterman football player during his playing days at the University of New Hampshire. Upon hearing that a former Wildcat was becoming the new head coach of an historical program like Notre Dame, a sports writer for the local newspaper, John Hussey of the New Hampshire Union, decided to do some research on O'Leary for a report. When Hussey started to interview former coaches and players that played with O'Leary, there was a problem. None of them could recall O'Leary playing a single game for the Wildcats. Now, this was strange because O'Leary's resume said he played football at New Hampshire. After further investigations, Hussey found out O'Leary did not play football in New Hampshire or even play sports at the university at all. So after finding out about this, Hussey would report his findings to fellow reporter Jim Finnell, who would go on to break the story on December 12th. So when this news broke, admin officials at Notre Dame went to O'Leary and asked him, "What the hell is this about?" O'Leary admitted he lied about his athletic career at New Hampshire and offered to resign, but athletic director Kevin White decided to overlook this misstep from O'Leary's past and decided not to fire him. Sure, it's embarrassing that the head coach lied about being a 3-time Letterman, but let's be honest, who hasn't lied about their early playing days? When people come up to me and ask me about my time playing football, I show them this totally not fake image of my recruiting profile on ESPN. Sure, O'Leary lied, but it's nothing that bad, right? As long as O'Leary didn't lie about anything else, we should be fine. Oh, we have a phone call. Hello? Yeah, what about George? Wait, really? Wait, you're being serious? Okay, gotcha, thank you so much. Okay, yeah, okay, bye. Hey George, quick question. The people in the registrar office were looking at your resume and it says you have a master's degree at NYU Stony Brook. One problem though, and this is real funny, that school doesn't exist, George. When Notre Dame officials asked O'Leary if there was any other inaccuracies in his resume, O'Leary admitted that he did not have a master's degree from NYU Stony Brook because that school does not exist. O'Leary combined NYU and Stony Brook University and combined them into one fake school. O'Leary did take 2 courses at Stony Brook, but he never graduated from Stony Brook. Listen, you can lie all you want about what you did in your playing days, but the moment you start lying about what degree you have when working a job at a university, you done goofed up. George O'Leary resigned from Notre Dame before coaching a single game or practice. O'Leary's 6-day stint as the Fighting Irish head coach is the shortest coaching tenure in FBS history. The Fighting Irish would go on to hire Tyrone Willingham, and George O'Leary would still get coaching jobs as this scandal didn't have any negative impact on his coaching career, as he would go on to work with the Minnesota Vikings before becoming the head coach for the UCF Golden Knights, where he would become the most successful coach in the Golden Knights history. Having to resign from a head coaching job because you lied on your resume is kind of embarrassing, but all that pales in comparison to what happened to Mike Price at Alabama.
I never will go back to Alabama. That is not the place for me. I never will go back to Alabama. That is not the place for me.
The Alabama Crimson Tide have just finished the 2002-03 season with a 10-3 record, while going 6-2 in conference play, while also placing first in the SEC West Division. But instead of playing in the SEC title game and playing in a bowl game, they ended up losing their head coach Dennis Franchione to the Texas A&M Aggies. Despite having back-to-back winning records, Franchione decided to bounce after the 0-2 season, even though Alabama offered him a 10-year contract. And that is because Alabama was given a 2-year bowl ban and lost 21 scholarships due to the recruitment of Albert Means out of Memphis, Tennessee. This violation wasn't because of Franchione's actions, this was because of the former coach he replaced, Mike DuBose. Mike DuBose's tenure with the Crimson Tide is a time that many Crimson Tide faithful would very much like to forget. In his first year, the team had a 4-6 record going into their final game of the season against Auburn in the Iron Bowl. If the Crimson Tide could beat their hated rivals in the Iron Bowl, then at least the season wouldn't be a complete failure, but sadly, that game ended in disastrous fashion. With a minute left in the fourth quarter, Alabama was up by 2 points on Auburn. Facing a 3rd and 1, the Tide needed to convert so they didn't punt the ball back to Auburn. On the pivotal 3rd down, the Crimson Tide ran a screen pass which resulted in a fumble recovery for the Tigers, which gave them the win thanks to a game-winning field goal. The Tide finished with a 4-7 record, their worst record since 1957. Not only was this an embarrassing way to lose to your rival, it also emerged that the Bows did not call the play and also had no idea what play was being ran. After that embarrassment, the Bows would go on to fire 4 assistant coaches for this mess up. The next season in 1998, the Tide improved by going 7-5 but lost in the inaugural Music City Bowl to Virginia Tech. The 1999 season was a pivotal one for the Bows, not only because many were hoping the Tide would take the jump this year, but also the Bows was coaching for a contract. Despite signing a 5-year contract, the Bows' final 2 years were removed because of an out-of-court settlement that was reached due to an affair he had with his secretary. So this means the Bows had to do something special to at least get a new contract with the Tide, and that's exactly what happened.
They trailed 22-7. Palmer. And it knocked down and it's intercepted. Jared Johnson. This is another Alabama touchdown. Reggie Grimes with a defensive lineman dream.
In 1999, the Tide won 10 games and won the SEC title. Thanks to this, Mike DuBose won SEC Coach of the Year and got the 2 years back on his contract. It also helped that he had future MVP Shaun Alexander on his team, but that's beside the point. Heading into the 2000 season, the Crimson Tide was ranked 3rd in the country and had major expectations, and the Tide responded by going 3-8. And after losing 40-38 to the Golden Knights, it was announced that DuBose would be fired, but was allowed to finish the season for some odd reason. The DuBose era ended terribly, which also included a nice little gift of NCAA violation. DuBose was not implicated, but it did happen under his watch. Now, to be fair to DuBose, he wasn't given a good hand either, because when he first took over, the Tide was on probation due to what happened with the 1992 championship coach, Gene Stallings, due to him playing cornerback Antonio Langham, who was ineligible because he signed with an agent before the national title game against Miami. Stallings would resign in 96, and this would lead to the hiring of DuBose. So now that I have mentioned all of this, the Crimson Tide needed to hit on their next head coach and find someone who could lead this team. So on December 18th, 2002, they decided to hire former Wazoo head coach Mike Price. Mike Price spent 14 seasons at Washington State, where he helped turn around the Cougars and lead them to 2 Rose Bowl appearances and coached 2 top quarterback prospects in Drew Bledsoe and Ryan Leaf. Now, I have to give credit to Mike Price because he did last longer than George O'Leary, because Price was at least able to coach spring practices at Alabama, but that would be the only coaching Mike Price would do as the head coach. On May 3rd, 2003, only 4 months into the job, Price was fired by the University of Alabama. And why was he fired, you ask? Well, our good friend Mike over here was on a trip to Pensacola, Florida, where Price was playing in a golf tournament. News reports surfaced that he allegedly was seen at a strip club, and also had a $1,000 charge to his hotel room by an unknown woman staying in the room. Now, this was terrible timing for Mike Price, because earlier, he was being reprimanded for visiting campus area bars and drinking into the early hours in Tuscaloosa. So when Alabama found out about Mike's bizarre adventures in Florida, he was fired only after 5 months on the job. Despite the missteps in their respective coaching hires, both Notre Dame and Alabama would find their head coaches. After Tyrone Willingham and Charlie Weiss came and gone, Brian Kelly would come in and bring some stability to the program, and then after he left, Marcus Freeman would take over, where he has been doing a pretty well job at Notre Dame. Well, as for Alabama, after Mike Shula's tenure was done, they were able to get former Dolphins head coach Nick Saban, and the rest is really history.
What answers did you have about your quarterbacks after watching both of them play tonight?
Well, I still like both guys. I think both guys are good players. I think both guys can help our team. All right, so why do you continually try to get me to say something that doesn't respect one of them? I'm not going to, so quit asking.
Youth right there. Tagovailoa trying to make up for it. Fires to the end zone. Touchdown! Alabama wins! In a season of chaos, the Crimson Tide are the conference. Constant excellence. Bama bludgeons the Buckeyes, and Saban steps past Paul Bryant with his 7th national championship.